There's going to be lots of videos about Steam Next Fest October 2024 throughout different themes of games that I've played, but I wanted to kick off this little mini collection with a standalone video about a game called Pine, A Story of Loss. There's a demo out on Steam now for everyone to try out, but I've had access to the full extended preview build of this game and played it in its entirety. This isn't a review because I'm not going to be scoring the game, and that's because there's still a while for it to be released, so there's going to be all variable tweaks and changes with the game itself and its experience. But I wanted to comment more on its emotional gravitas because I think I'm coming into this game with a real personal and recent experience. My dad passed away and died this year, and that's following an extended period of multiple illnesses and an awful lot of hard work and care to look after him. And during that time, my mum became so unwell with it all that she collapsed and went into a coma. So this year has been utterly horrific, if I'm being quite honest, and I've not processed it very well at all because it's one thing after another. And so Pines arrived for me at a particular point in my life where I know I need to start processing the loss of my dad and how the world now is with my mum and the care that's required for that. And Pine has allowed me to sit in a meditative state to start contemplating some of this. And that's why it was important to make this as a standalone preview video, because I think there's potential here for this to help a lot of people that have been in my situation. With Pine, you play as a woodworker who lived with his wife in a beautiful thatched roof cottage in the woods, and their life was seemingly going great. But what Pine does over a short 90-minute to 2-hour playtime is to chart the progress of him losing his wife and how he feels over the course of a year through 4 seasons. What this game does is it puts you into and lulls you into a meditative state through chop wood, carry water mechanics. So each day starts off with having to fix the thatched roof, go and chop wood for the log fires, go and get the crops watered or pick them so that you can then make the dinner. And then different seasons will move into different types of activities that are just the daily grind for the woodworker. But because he's now all on his own, the game is quite quiet, and because the activities are very specific, small, low effort things most of the time, you're not really focused on the mechanics necessarily, because they become repetitive, almost as if it's trying to clear out and empty your mind. And then what will happen when you start repeating some of these tasks is that on the second and third try of doing them, you'll start to have recollections of your wife doing this task with you, and it will take you off to a happy memory or a specific significant moment. And those moments are fleeting, but they're really happy for the woodworker. But then it immediately drags you into this guilt, struggle of grief and reflection cycle. And the way how he then deals with that, and you do it as a mini game, is to carve out from the pine wood trees wooden statuettes of your wife doing different things. So it could be that she was cooking, or she's posing on like one of the trees like jauntily, or she's doing something silly. They're all different memories that relate to the mini games and interactions and mini puzzles that you have to solve whenever you go into one of these memory segments. But it's that repetitive cycle of, you know what's coming, the activities stay relatively the same, and it lulls you into a numbness that allows you to start processing how you feel too. And what Pine helped me do was, as the woodworker thinks about the different things and the banality of everyday chores and life, I was starting to find that I was pulling references that were quite similar for my dad. And it allowed me to start feeling like I could appreciate some of his happier moments and not feeling guilty for thinking about him in a happy way. Because where his death is still very recent and I'm still kind of processing and dealing with it, I'm in this place at the moment where I think very fondly of an awful lot of things that he does or did. And I then feel guilty for it bringing a smile to my face sometimes because I'm still so sad that he's not here. And Pine is targeting that exact guilt trip, emotional baggage cycle, because that's where the woodworker is. And each season sees him moving through that stage of grief in a slightly different way. And he never really truly gets over his wife's death, of course, but he learns how to take it with him and incorporate it more into his daily life so that it's less of a daily numb strain to keep on walking forward. Because one of the things that I've personally struggled with throughout all of this, particularly when both things were going on at the same time, with my dad's passing and my mum in the coma and kind of really in the depths of early recovery from that, was I found that so important that I was getting really frustrated that the world continues on regardless, because we're really small pawns in this world that just carries on whether we're here or not. And people like shoving work priorities in your face and things like that. And Pine uses the daily chores that are very simple, but they still need to be done. And as you go through these different seasons, the woodworker doesn't necessarily start to see these as more jauntier, happier chores to do, but it's almost as if he embraces the simplicity of the daily life to help him process all of the emotions that you're doing. The woodworker is quite stoic. And so this game is set up in a way that means that you start to offload how you think and feel onto the woodworker, because it gives you the framework to put your emotions into it and make you understand or think about how you're feeling about the situation of loss and grief and death too. And whilst I do think this game is an emotional journey for a lot of people, I do think that it's got the potential to help heal and start off not moving on from the grief process, but learning how to carry it with you through your daily life by experiencing this game. And for that, I wanted to do this standalone video to kind of say, if you're in any of these types of positions, or if you find yourself caught in a cycle where you're almost guilt tripping yourself for trying to move on, or you're stuck not like at the beginning of the grief cycle going, I don't quite know what my first step is, and if I go in for that first step, I know I'm just going to be a total emotional wreck. I think Pine: A Story for Loss could be a useful tool for you to help kick off some of that journey. So yeah, A Story for Loss, beautifully presented, a really subtle but well-placed soundtrack. The controls work very well for the minimal gameplay that there is in there to offer, and what puzzles and extra like movements and things you have to do, they're set up at such a low bar that it doesn't get in the way of what the narrative story is trying to explain. And so yeah, I think this one is going to be a quiet little special game that I think will have a special place in a lot of people's hearts, and it's come along at the perfect time for me to help me in my life. So check it out, and I'll be back to a little bit more happier and positive videos, I'm sure, in the future as we dive through other demos. Take care.